This YouTube channel is all about the Motley Muse art. I create art and I teach you how to create your own. Please subscribe. Here is what we're going to need for this awesome art project. Some cool denim to paint on, some acrylic paint, not oil-based, not watercolor. It has to be acrylic paint because we're going to add textile medium to the acrylic paint. And when we do this, the paint will stick onto the denim and hold permanently. That way we can wash and wear it many times. Now, every single time that I have a different color, I like to use a different cup for each color. This will save time and effort and make the paintings a little bit easier to paint. I'm also using this sponge that I cut into a square so I can have some sharp edges for the stamping look that I want. Now let's go ahead and add some paint. Now the ratio of this is 1 part acrylic paint to 1 part textile medium. Now the textile medium is very flowy and gooey. It's very thin. So the paint I'm using is basic, which is a thick type of an acrylic paint. And now that I add this fluid in there, it's really going to loosen up the paint a lot. And I recommend that each time you do this, you mix it very well. So because I'm going to be stamping here, I'm putting my sponge inside of the cup and I'm tapping up and down and twisting and turning so I can really get the paint to mix together well. It's very important that we do that so that way that the paint will stick on to the denim. Yeah, that looks pretty good. I like that. It's kind of gooey. It's a little bit thinner than it was coming out of the tube because the textile medium is very thin. Okay, so let's see. Now look at your denim, figure out what you want to do, and go ahead and just stamp up and down, up and down. Now I'm going kind of fast on purpose, and I'm not putting a lot of thought or effort into this because I want it to look very abstract and random. So let's go ahead and take a time to stamp everything, and once you got it, then I'll explain to the next step. Now you don't have to use specifically the colors I'm using. I chose these colors because I like them. I mean, really, purple and teal, I think they're really cool colors. So you could try this with like different colors, really whatever the palette is, like pink purple, maybe like red green for Christmas. Like there's so many ways you could go about doing it. Also notice as I'm stamping here, do you see how they're making little squares? That's what we're trying to go for, like for this particular design that I'm doing. If I were to have cut my my sponge, which is foamy, and I cut it into a round shape, then I really wouldn't have those straight edges and those corners. But I'm trying to go for edges and corners, so that's why the sponge is specifically cut the way it is. And so I want some of these little stamp marks to be a whole bunch of purple, and I want them to also be like random, like each one. Notice how, see how I'm turning my hand here? I stamp, turn, stamp, turn. I want the squares to look like they're going in all different directions and all different little angles. Some of them are like really squishy with paint, others are not. So just have fun. Enjoy, take a moment to just go crazy on your jeans and have a good time. Now also to leave some space of blue, like where we can see some natural denim. We don't want to cover the whole thing purple because then that defeats the look. Okay, so see this? This is a heat gun. Now it's a DeWalt, any brand, they're all good. My husband gave it to me, so I saved money on it basically. But it has like, see right here are the sensors. It can go from not warm at all to like super extremely hot, more than a hairdryer. So let's turn it on and see how it's 150 degrees Fahrenheit. And I'm going to push the up button here and see how it goes to 11 degrees Fahrenheit. It's going to take a while to reach to that temperature, but that's the temperature that I want. So give it like 10 seconds and it should heat up. Now these heat guns, be very careful. I have hurt myself. And like I'm a grown adult and yeah, I still hurt myself on this thing. So take a moment and make sure that you don't like burn yourself. Also, when you set it down, this one is flat on the back, so I can turn it upside down and it sits flat on the table. One time I was going really fast and not paying attention, and so I like knocked it over and I burned my elbow. It hurt really bad. So be careful, okay? Pay attention. Now I'm going to go over here on the denim. Now I'm about 2 inches above, and I'm going to go really slow, but look at how fast I move. I want the heat to get onto the paint. Now this is going to stimulate the textile medium that we added into the paint, and it's going to start making the bond that it needs to make. And honestly, really, if you're not going to heat it and you add a textile medium to the paint, you're basically just wasting your time and your art supplies, because for it to work and to do its job correctly, it really does require the heat. Now notice how I'm not really staying over one place for too long, just a little bit, and then I move over, a little bit, and then move over, and you keep doing that the whole way, so that way everything has a moment to dry. Now, it has happened to me where I'm getting like not paying attention, or I'm getting too into what I'm doing and I don't move the gun around enough that I end up burning some spots. And I don't like that. Like, I've done that in the past. Like, I did this jacket that was really cute, and then I just let the heat gun on too long, and it was over a white section of paint, and it turned it brown because, like, I mean, it burned it, basically, is what happened. And so that really sucked. Then it totally, like, so I had to paint over, and it was a whole thing. And so don't do that to your denim. I mean, unless that's the look you're going for, but really, honestly, it melts. Like, and denim's like a natural cottony fiber. So you want heat, but don't put too much heat. I mean, you're going to see it too, and you're going to smell it a little bit. When I use the gun, I can always, like, my art studio has the smell lingering for like 2 days. So open some windows, or like, I don't know, maybe if you want to wear like a mask or something to be like safer, which really you should. I should be telling you the like public service announcement. You probably should be wearing a respirator. I'm not at this moment, just because I'm trying to explain what I'm doing and everything, but like, yeah, so just go outside. Do this outside. And don't burn your table underneath too. Make sure when you're done that you turn it off and that you set it up like this. See how I'm setting it down right here, and it kind of just sits up? And I'm going to put it off to the side so it's out of the way, but that way I'm not burning the table or anything. So, okay, let's go ahead and do the other side here. Now, I've already pretty much explained what's going on, so I'm going to take a quick little pause here. And every time when I do art projects, I always like to have a moment of time where I just kind of zen out, and sometimes I pray, I think about different things. I take a moment of silence, and I like that, to just kind of chill out for a minute and give my brain like a break. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Remember to add the textile medium, very important. And remember to mix it really super well so it has an even coating in the mixture. Okay, so I didn't add any music to this video solely because I have an amazing amount of people. I mean, I never thought I would have this many followers, but it's super cool. Thank you so much. Is pretty cool. But I have so many different students from different backgrounds who like many different types of music. So because of that, I didn't add any music to the video. So go ahead if you would like, or have a moment of silence. I mean, honestly, I feel totally restored when I have a moment of silence. So, okay. When it's time for the next step, I will explain then. But until then, have a good little meditation. How was it? Do you feel better? I do. Okay, so let's mix the teal. So I have a new clean cup. I'm going to add a little bit of blue here. Now I need to mix it because currently I don't have teal. I have green and blue. So I'm adding a little blue and a little bit of green. So it's about 2 parts blue to 1 part green and 1 part white. Oops, oh geez, it's spilled out. Okay, so let's make that 2 parts white, 2 parts blue, 1 part green. And this is going to be textile medium, so new ratio. We're going to do 1 part paint to 1 part textile medium. Get it? So I had white, blue, green. Now I'm going to take my sponge. It dried completely. I'm going to use the other side, but this purple is already all the way dry, so it's fine. And I'm going to go ahead and squish it and move it around and really get it all mixed in there. So the colors we need are blue, green, and white mixed together. The more white you add, the lighter shade that you're going to have, the lighter value that you'll have to the teal. The less white you add, the darker the teal is going to look, the darker the shade. And see how that's a nice pretty color. Now after you're mixing it for a while and you don't like the color, you can adjust accordingly to the mixture. I think this color is cool. So I'm going to go ahead and stamp. Now I'm kind of going to focus while I'm stamping on areas that don't have paint. However, I want to be mindful at the same time that I'm not covering all the purple and all the denim. I want to have the purple paint peekabooing, and I also want to have the denim peekabooing too. So, oh, look at how that's turning out. I didn't mix super perfect, and there's like some green spots that just kind of happened because I didn't mix that well. Ooh, I like it. It's a happy accident. I think I'm going to go ahead and keep it. It's totally adorable. Yeah, it's got, you know, they almost look like little ice cubes. This is cute. I like it. It's working. It's happening. Whew. When you're done, can you send me a picture? I want to see how cool yours turned out. Please send me a photo. I want to be like twinsies. Okay. So, yep, it's coming. I like it. Yeah, very sporadic. Remember, let the denim be peekabooey. Let the purple be peekabooey. Oh, and remember, keep turning your sponge so that way different angles, and I mean for the most part I got little rectangles going on here, but in different, we want every little squishiness to have its own squishiness and personality. Now let's use the heat gun over all of the new stamps of blue that we put in there. This is turning out so cool. Let's paint the flowers. Okay, so I'm going to get a fresh, clean cup, and I'm going to add some black acrylic paint. And I'm also going to add some textile medium. Now remember, it's 1 part acrylic paint to 1 part textile medium. Yep, it should look like that. Now, you would think that it would turn itself gray, and it will for a minute here. But we're going to mix it super, super well. The more you mix it, it's going to turn it all the way black. So just bear with me a minute. You could also, if you wanted to, buy some acrylic paint that already has textile medium in it. That they do sell that. That's a thing. But it's actually kind of expensive. Like when you think about and do the math on ounces and everything like that, it's like you end up paying like literally, I'm not exaggerating, like 5 times more for the paint. So it's cheaper to do it this way, to just have the acrylic paint and add the medium to it. So now that it's mixed, I'm going to go ahead and wipe off my brush just because I want to have it nice and clean and super pointy. I'm using a small filbert bright, which means the bristles are tightly compacted together on the brush and they are cut almost square but a little bit rounded. So they're halfway between a round brush and a square brush. And it's basically, I'm pretty much using a liner brush that just has a lot of bristles and is really tightly compacted, but is not round, it's not square. It's called a filbert bright. Now with these flowers, they look difficult, but they're not. So I start in the middle here and I make little crescents, like little C's, little commas. We're going to do a comma and I'm going to start in the middle of the flower and just make a couple little strokes. Now the middle of the flower wants tiny little commas. And the comma starts and ends on each other. They touch each other. They make little bumps. Now see how this one's a little bit bigger here? The further I get out from the flower, the further these commas are going to be. And you see how one touches the other? And then you kind of pretty much just do it until as big as you want the flower. I usually like to add about like 5 or 6 layers of these commas. So it's comma here, touch, touch on both sides from the corner. So watch, see, I touched, I swooped around like a comma and I touched another petal. Now, I also am on purpose trying to make them off center from each other. Some of them are bigger, some of them are small, some of them are rounder, some of them are a little pointy. I like the size of this flower. So now let's go ahead and make some leaves. So what I'm doing is I'm making a straight line that's coming out. And at the edge where the leaf is, I'm going to do an oval that has been squished and is pointy. So I got this nice pretty line going on. And then I'm going to come out here towards the end and I'm going to loop around making another comma. Now see how it's a half circle like it's been squished? Now let's come back and do the other side. I'm going to go around and pointy. So it's pointy on one end and rounded on the other. It's going to take a little bit to practice, but trust me, you'll get this. It'll come out super cute. So we make the line and then we go half circle, and then I think it's cool too to put this line here in the middle of the leaf just because it gives it added little dimension there. And I always think that groups of 3s tend to be more visually stimulating. They're cooler to look at. The prime numbers, when you paint, well, when I paint, I always try to think of prime numbers as in where the objects are and stuff. I think it just looks cooler in the end, art science and all that. So yeah, it's looking good. Now let's space out and make this rose look as though it's kind of tilted. So I'm going to come here with some other petals. Now these ones, since they're the outside petals, they can be a little wavy. I'm still doing the comma thing, but notice how I'm putting little bumps within my comma and I'm off-centering each petal. So it touches one petal, it comes out, it's bumpy, and then it touches the other petal to close. Let's do a leaf right here, which is basically the same as we did on the other one, just instead of making the line and then a leaf, it's just protruding out from the rose. And what we did on the other side, let's do from the right and the left. So I want the half of the flower we want it to balance itself. So notice how I'm doing these leaves here are just like the ones on the other side of the flower. However, they're not exactly perfect and mirror image each other. We want the right side of the flower to resemble the left. However, each side wants to be its own. And the petals are basically ovals, or excuse me, the leaves are basically ovals, but they each have their own little personality. Some are a little crooked, some are pointy, some are more rounded. Like they have the basic idea that they're circles, but they're squished. So once you go a little bit and you like what you see, take a moment and use the dryer and just dry it a little bit. I like to go a little bit at a time here just because I'm being more precise. When we were doing the stamping, I was just kind of all over the place, but now I kind of really want to make this look cool. Now also too, notice how that it's not looking like a photograph of a rose. I don't want it to look like a realism. I want it to look impressionistic, very well, not really impressionistic. I want to go super modern art with this. So I'm giving the idea that it looks like a rose, but I'm not like really like it's a rose, right? It's fun, imaginative, just a fun little outline of a rose. Let's go ahead and add some more cool things to this design. So I'm making a straight line and with some swooshes. So I'm swooshing right and I'm swooshing left. And remember how I taught in the other classes about making pine trees? It's basically the same kind of concept. I'm still using the tiny small filbert right brush, but I'm basically starting up high and swooshing down right, starting up high, swooshing down left, starting up high, swooshing, back and forth each way, right, left, right, left, starting up, pulling the brush down. And they're little tiny. I mean, look at the size of these petals compared to my finger. Now, once I have a swoosh that I kind of like, I can fill in the center as a line. And so basically, we're kind of doing like a stem of leaves that's like a vine, or you could say maybe like a stem of little tiny flowers. I mean, this is very modernistic style. So we're giving the basic idea, but not really giving a lot of information as to what it is. So the viewer themselves can kind of use their imagination onto the art. And that's what makes it super modernistic. So I'm going to make two here so that way it has like a buddy, just like with the leaves. I don't like every once in a long time I'll put a leaf by itself, but I usually like them to always have a buddy and be like in a cluster. So right now I'm going in the middle here with all these little swooshes that I made, and I'm making a straight line down, a really thin line, so then they're just kind of all connected together on the same vine. Yeah, it's looking pretty good. Let's make another one over here. So I'm swooshing, because I'm sideways now, I'm swooshing up, I'm swooshing down, I'm swooshing up each time with my tiny little Filbert Bright brush. If you don't have a Filbert Bright, I recommend doing this step with a liner brush, which is a tiny, basically just your tiniest brush you got. Use that one. If you make a mistake, that's okay. You could always paint over. So now let's do a line in between here to make sure that they all kind of touch each other. Now, notice in the design too that the vine is, they're all in different directions. However, the pointiness of the vine is out here far away, and then the vines come into the flower. So it's almost like we're making a bouquet and all the stems are coming together to one central area. See how I'm swooshing right, I'm swooshing left. Sometimes they touch each other, sometimes they don't. It's everybody's is going to look slightly different. It's going to be the same gist, but I also want to take a moment because I've had students in the past that they stress out that it's like not the coolest thing they've ever seen as they're painting. It takes a moment. Like, I'm going to go back and correct and fix all my boo-boos, So like, If as you're painting, it's not looking gorgeous, don't worry, let it go. Just let it happen, let it flow, continue, push yourself. You can come back to it. I always like to also tell myself if I start a project, I finish the project. And painting this project, this denim jeans here, really, you're seeing that I'm doing it all in one moment. I have had students where they'll start a project and never finish it, and then they'll continue to fixate on that, like trying to make it perfect and perfect. And make sure if you start it that you're going to finish it, because then you just stress yourself. I know I do. I stress myself out. So try to finish it. But if you make a boo-boo, it's okay. You could come back, take a break, go do something else, and come back later. So right now, I'm going to do a little rose down here. Now remember, the commas that are in the middle of the rose are tiny and small, little ones. And then the further out you get, the petals get a little bit bigger. And then as they get bigger, they kind of get bumpy. Now these flowers are up against each other. So I'm going to make it with the way that I've commaed there. I'm making it look like as though they're touching, and the one I'm painting now is slightly under the other one. Now also too, to make the flower look as though it is kind of not facing straight towards me, notice how on the bottom part of the rose, I put the petals very tiny and little, and then on the top part of the rose, I made those petals slightly bigger. This will give the illusion that the rose is not directly facing you and is tilted a little, which makes the painting totally cool. Now I added 2 little leaves right here. They're kind of cute. They're fun, little bunny earry type things. But I think it just adds to the fullness to have so we basically have like 2 different leaves going on, but really they're the same leaf because they're still like a circle that's an oval that's been squished a little bit and kind of pointy on the one end. So all the leaves look like they're similar, that they kind of came from the same plant, or the rose, that they're rosy type of leaves, but yet they each all have their own characteristics. Even with these vines here, notice how each one is slightly a little different. Some in the process of painting, I've swooshed back and forth, but some of them can be slightly curved. Some of them can be super straight when you look at them from a distance in the big picture. But the one thing that all of these vines have in common is that they are all pointing roughly towards the center of the flowers. So the end of the vine is sticking out away from the flowers, and then the stem, like if it's almost a bouquet, that all the stems are joining together and coming together. Now I'm also just kind of not really paying a whole lot of attention on purpose to the blues and the purples that are going on underneath, because I don't really have a foreground. I don't really have a background. I mean, I kind of do that one rose is sort of above the other, and it does look like the leaves are kind of coming from behind the rose, but I don't really have a foreground from the blues and the purples and the roses. They're all kind of existing on the same plane, and I think that's a pretty cool look, very modernistic. Now everything that I'm showing you here is how to paint on denim. So if you wanted to, then you could start with your black outline first and have a basic idea of where you're putting the flowers and the leaves and have it all planned out. Once you have the black down, then you can go over with the purple, or let's say you want to do red for the roses. And then you would just fill in the areas of the petals of where you put the roses. Now you can also blend with these. I've done it. It's a lot of work and it's very expensive, because every time I've done it, I've needed instead of with acrylic paint on canvas, I can just kind of blend my colors on the canvas, and I can blend on the paint and then add those colors to the canvas. Whereas when you paint with denim and you're trying to do that, yes, you can paint in the denim a little bit, but you got to have your paint really super thin when you're blending, because it absorbs into the fabric super quick. And what happens is, if you're not blending super fast and then you go and you wash it, then the color that is underneath that dried first is what's going to adhere to the fabric. And sometimes also I've noticed myself that when I blend, I am not paying attention sometimes and I add too many layers and it gets way too thick. And then because it's really thick, globby paint, sometimes it will crack and sometimes it'll peel right off of the denim because it's just super thick. So when you're blending, be very careful, be mindful of that. Don't add too much paint. Also, you're going to want to have lots of different little colors for each of the different shades, because once you have like your mixing and you got your cup, well, you're going to probably want to use that color elsewhere in your design as well. But you really, when you blend, you should really only work on one little section at a time because the paint is still wet. So you can have some blending happening when you scumble the brush back and forth. So it just takes practice, honestly. The more I've done it, the better I'm getting at it. So in 20 years from now, I'm sure I'm going to be amazingly awesome at this. I think they're coming out cute. I like the denim I paint. So, I mean, they all have their own little personalities. So don't stress, relax. Practice on like a sad period of denim first of whatever you got. And then when you get really good, then move over to something that are a lot nicer, better quality after you really know what you're doing here. And then that way you don't destroy your really cool denim. This is so much fun. Thank you for hanging out with me today. This is a blast. When you're finished with yours, please send me a picture. I know I said it earlier, but I totally want to be twinsies with you and see how cool yours came out. Don't forget to take a moment and dry what you got going on. So now I'm going to come down here to the calf, and I'm going to basically do pretty much the exact same design. So remember, it's a bunch of little commas. They start out tiny and little in the middle of the flower, and then as you get further away from the middle, the petals get larger, the commas get larger, and then they get more bumpier the further away you go. But the beginning of the roses wants to be little commas. Now notice how they're touching each other. So I'm almost making like the letter U, and the edges of the letter U are touching each other. And this one's a little bumpy here. A little bit of bump is good. Now, if you want your rose to not be directly facing out and be looking like it's tilted a little, one side over here, this one, is getting bigger petals. Notice how they're much bigger. And then the other side of the rose, they get a little bit smaller. And this is going to make the rose appear as though it's kind of on its side ever so slightly. I feel like the design is cooler when you add more than one flower, so that way it gives more for the eye to look at and to move around. I've been painting denim for many years, and I've had some that have not turned out so great. Now, I want to help you so you don't have the boo-boo mistakes I've had. Now, I painted this one on the back and the butt part that was really totally cute, and it was a really awesome piece of art. But then when I tried them on and I saw myself in the mirror, oh my goodness, I totally fatal error. It was horrible. So I did the right butt cheek, and it was like a big design. It was very intricate and a lot going on. And then in the left butt cheek, it was very simple with the design. And so seeing it in the mirror, oh my goodness, it was like my right butt looked like it was huge. I looked like totally super lopsided. Like it gave a design look, like art science and the brain and everything. It just, my butt looked totally icky. So avoid that. When you do the butt part, I would recommend, and this is what I do ever since then, I've always made sure that the right butt cheek and the left butt cheek are similar in design and color. And that way, when I wear them, my butt won't look lopsided. Now, with these particular pants, I decided to be almost different. I usually paint all sides, but I wanted to just paint the front here and be like, now you see me, now you don't. Now you see me, now you don't. And the other reason I'm also doing one leg, the calf, and then the other one, the thigh, where I'm really focusing on those areas, is because it gives it is off balance. It totally is. But when it comes to looking at the pants from the front of the body, is still, even though it is unbalanced, it's okay. They look totally cute on. It works. It's just basically the hip area and the butt area. Well, mostly just the butt area. Make sure that that's balanced so you don't look awkward. And have fun. Oh, also too, if you want to use other colors, go ahead and use other colors. Like there is a way that you could, like I said about earlier, where you could like paint them red and stuff. Like you could go all kinds. You could do rainbow. You could write little words in here. I've done that before. I have a pair of jeans that I wrote the word love, and I did it all cursive, and I did it all in different colors, and they came out super cute. It was like, it was wonderful. I used a tiny liner brush when I did that. So take your time. The more that you do these, the cooler they're going to look. Don't forget to dry the paint. Now you can wash them and wear them and the paint will stay. Thanks for watching. Push the purple flower to subscribe and you can watch all kinds of awesome videos.